All right, in section 3 here, we're going to look at properties of logarithms and then also get into solving some logarithmic equations that involve using some of these properties. So we have 3 huge important properties of logs, kind of rules we have with logs, and these are on your reference sheet. So, excuse me, the first one that I've labeled number 1 here is the log of a product. So when we have the log of, and I'm using u and v, and I think this is what it is on your reference sheet. So when I have the log, doesn't matter what the base, and I'm using a to be the base in this one. If I have the log of a product, the log of u times v in base a, we add the log of u to the log of v. And this has to do with exponent rules, because if you think about a logarithm, it's an exponent rule. When you have a product, you add exponents. That's what we're going to do. We're going to add the exponents. And that's why the rule holds true. If you have the log of a quotient, division, you're going to take the log of whatever's on top here, the log of u, and you are going to subtract the log of the bottom. And the rule for the exponents when you divide is you subtract exponents. That's where the rule comes from. And then we have this rule where we have the log of something to a power. So I have the log of u to the power of c in base a. This thing really comes down in front, the power on whatever you're taking the log of, and you multiply it times the log of u. So it's c times the log of u. Okay, and we'll be using these properties in the next couple sections, or in this section and the next 1 or 2 sections, kind of going either way with the properties. Sometimes, we'll have this and we'll go from left to right. Sometimes we'll be starting when we solve equations. Sometimes we go from what's on the right back to what's on the left. But we're going to use these properties, and you need to, you don't need to memorize them, but you need to know how to use them. So now let's look at number 1. We're just going to, these are some simple ones, these first 8. Expand each logarithm using logarithmic properties. So when we have the log of u squared, this is kind of property number 3, that when I had the log of u to the c in base a, this came back and said, well, that's c times the log of u. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to take this power. That means it's going to be 2 times the log of u. Okay? That's really property number 3 that I just looked at. All right, so now let's slide over to number 2 here. Here's the log of a product. Okay, see how I have a product in there? So that means I'm going to take the log of u, and I'm going to add the log of the second thing. So it's the log of u plus the log of v, because it's a product in there. And then we'll go down to number 6. Here it's the log of a quotient. We're dividing. So that's going to be the log of x minus the log of y. We subtract when we have a quotient. Okay, so now let's go down to the bottom where we're going to apply some, a couple of these within the same problem. So you're going to expand the logarithm and use these logarithm properties that we're talking about. So as you can see, I've got a product of some things in here. I also have a power on one of those things. So the first thing we're going to do is and these rules apply to if it's a product of more than 2 things inside parentheses too. So this really is going to be the log of 6 in base 9 plus the log of 5 in base 9 plus the log of 7 squared in base 9. So we're doing the product of these 3 things. That means I add the logs together. That's kind of property number 1. Now, we need to expand as far as we can go, and we can never leave the log of something to a power. This is going to use property number 3 and go down in front. So I'm going to rewrite this as, I'm going to leave the first 2 things. So I have the log of 6 plus the log of 5, and both of these are in base 9. And then I'm going to go, well, that 2 comes down in front. So this is the log of something to a power, so it's 2 times the log of 7 in base 9. And that's as far as you could go with the expansion. Let's go down to 15. So in 15, I've got a quotient, and in that quotient I've got some powers. So the first thing we're going to do, we usually use properties 1 and 2 first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write it as the log of the top thing minus, because it's a quotient, the log of the bottom thing. And we should put the base on here, and notice it's base 2, so these are in base 2 down here for the little subscript. Now, just like with the one I did earlier, this is going to use property number 3 and come down in front. So it's going to be 2 times the log of 6 in base 2 minus this 3 is going to go down in front and become 3 times the log of 5 in base 2.